Morning all. I had a very interesting game last night playing for Muswell Hill Chess Club. So we were playing the mighty King's Head, who had thrashed us on an away match, something like 6-2. So anyway, I was playing on board 1. Unfortunately, my good friend Alex, he wasn't able to play, so we weren't our best team either. I mean, but Muswell Hill's a very, very promising club. We've got a lot of promising juniors. Some of them are at uni at the moment. So I think, you know, over the next few years, if we can just stay in Division 1, that would be great. I think so far we're managing to avoid relegation. But we gave King's Head quite a good match last night. I think we only lost like 4.5, 3.5. Okay, my game was on board 1 against R.McMichael. I was glad I wasn't playing John Piggott, who sometimes plays for them, but he'd already played on Tuesday for Barnet. Anyway, so I was thankful for that small mercy, about not having to play John, especially after video annotating his brilliant games recently. So anyway, but R.McMichael, yes, I had actually chess-based him, and he's a B3 exponent, and I'd only really prepared for him with the white pieces for some reason. I didn't spend that much time, about maybe half an hour actually. I was doing other stuff, maybe videos, but so okay, he's a B3 exponent, but I was actually with the white pieces. Now, one of the things playing on board 1 is that there's a big clock. It's not a standard clock, and it's actually starting to really wind me up. And part way through this game, I got the clock changed to a normal clock. Now, okay, that's a small consideration, but it's like if you're continually distracted by something, I think it's good to get rid of that element. Okay. So anyway, let's get on to the game. I might mention the clock later. So I played C4, and he played E6, and I started to remember, just remembering games he played in the league in the past, that actually he might be a Dutch Stonewall player. So he played D5, but I wasn't convinced he'd be playing Queen's Gambit declined, with Knight F6. And okay, with this in mind anyway, I played D4, and he did, lo and behold, unveil the Dutch Stonewall with F5. Okay, now the theme of this game is managing, I would like to term it managing strategic backfire. Now, I used to be a really fond reader of Erling Chernev, the most instructive games of chess ever played. Now, in those, some of the most beautiful, I thought, were like a pawn sack for a mighty knight on D5, where someone sacked a pawn, he had a mighty knight on D5, and his attack played itself. Not in this type of position. Black has to have a gaping hole on D5. But you get the idea. This idea of strategic crush actually was emphasised by these most instructive, example games of chess. Now, the thing is, if you are on the receiving side, inadvertently, of being strategically crushed, I think there's a way of managing it so you can still try and play objectively good or aggressive moves. And I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong or add some other stuff, I think one way is to hold on to try and identify your tactical trump cards. Okay, you may have lost the positional battle, but there might be tactical elements in the position. Like you might have an aggressive knight, or the opponent king might be on a certain diagonal where there might be a check in a few moves. So these tactical trump cards, I think they're very, very important to hold on to in case something did go wrong. And although with your best intentions you're trying to play strategically, maybe at some point you're distracted by a combination. The combination fails, and you end up on the receiving side of having to play super accurately like a computer to try and survive the position. Now that's an unfortunate thing, because really you want to play humane. You want to play like the human positional sacrifices, which are in Chernev's games, where the opponent is virtually in a lost position because you've done some positional sack and you've got a strategically crushing position. That's the ideal, to play humanly, with the strategic, the pawn structure on your side, the pieces in harmony with that, and the opponent just faced with intense pressure. But if you're on the receiving end, or you perceive yourself on the receiving end, I think holding on to the tactical trump cards might be the start of at least managing the new position at an emotional level. Okay, now here in the Dutch Stonewall, there's a clear strategic plan of weakening the dark squares and exchanging off the dark square bishop. And I was aware of this, from Kasparov's short, when Short used to play the Stonewall in very high level tournaments with some success. Okay, but this is a very popular system, this G3. I think Rubinstein popularised it against the Dutch Stonewall because it kind of reduces Black's potential for a kingside onslaught. Okay, so Black's putting the pawns on the light squares, the dark squares are weaker. So if there's a strategic crush here for White, it maybe involves trying to get rid of this dark square bishop, trying to make use of this e5 square, and maybe even, you know, later just try and win the ending with like maybe a queenside expansion. So some games I've seen where Kasparov, I think, beat Short and Stonewall had queenside expansion as well as dark square domination. Okay, so bishop g2, bishop d6. We both castle, and now I start this plan of b3. Note he's been quite clever that my knight has committed itself to c3. Okay, now it committed itself to c3 on move 2, so this was a clever move order from Black. We're at move 8 now. You see at move 2, c4 e6, knight c3, the knight's committed itself to c3. Okay, and we're at move 8, and you might wonder what is the big deal about that. The problem is, if the knight was on b1, bishop a3 would be supported. Then I could exchange off the dark square bishops, get my pieces on dark squares, or, you know, do a queenside avalanche later. The knight, however, is on c3, which means if I want to do this exchange, it's going to have to involve a queen c1 now. So knight bd7, bishop b2, queen e7, as though, you know, not discouraging that. Instead of maybe a more direct attacking plan, you know, like this, is actually positionally discouraging any bishop a3 straight away in the future, even now, even before I played queen c1. But I play queen c1 anyway, and he plays knight e4. Okay, so here I was a bit concerned also, you know, maybe Black in the future is maybe going to take and play f4 with some dynamic play as well. So for some reason, okay, I thought it was a good idea here, and maybe this isn't strictly necessary to play e3. I've weakened slightly that f3 square. I do wonder if e3 is really necessary now. Okay, but he supports his knight rather cosily, so knight df6, so he's got that very cozy e4 square. So is there a downside to the Black position? Well, I always thought it's the dark squares in principle because of all these pawns on the light squares. So this bishop to be eliminated is top priority. So I did manage to find or remember this retreat, which might be useful, knight b1. Now unless, you know, Black could make it a slightly more uncomfortable here for bishop a3 by playing say a5. I remember this, I think some people have played this. So bishop a3, bishop b4 to at least get some increased dynamism on the a file. But actually he didn't seem that concerned, and he is quite an exponent of the Dutch Stonewall. He just played actually bishop d7, so he's got the rerouting idea to get this bishop more active, more aggressive. Okay, so I get in my bishop e3, he plays bishop e8. I take off the dark square bishop, so am I winning a strategic battle? Well, I'm not sure. With his next move actually it's interesting because I thought maybe queen d6 is objectively best. Maybe he's taking some risk by allowing this pin now, this queen a3. The queen sitting nicely on the dark squares. I remember losing once a horrible Dutch defence game against someone, one of Adam Rau's strong all-play-all tournaments, where they played this in queen a3 and it was really annoying. I think c5 was the cause of annoyance as well, with a knight hopping there and winning a pawn at some point. Maybe it was forking these two guys. So okay, queen a3, and I thought, okay, I think I'm okay here. So bishop h5. He's getting his bishop more aggressive, fine, but I get my nice knight e5. Okay, now he protects his queen. So maybe in the future there might be a threat of actually taking on c4, but at the moment my knight's protecting c4 anyway. So I think White might be slightly, well, okay. So knight c3 protects the e2 square as well from bishop e2 entrances, but at the moment that wasn't a major issue. Now he plays knight d7. And okay, it's here I get attracted to a combination when maybe I should have just played quietly again and just try and build up my positional trump cards with minimal risk. So you'll note earlier that I'd played e3, I'd weakened my f3 square. And this bishop's kind of important, maybe in principle, to keep, because you know these squares you don't really want to weaken them, as we've seen time and time again. But even so, I was looking for interesting resources, and sometimes you do get distracted, and sometimes there might not be a fantastic positional basis for combinations. But here I was really quite convinced I'd found something of interest. Okay, I'll get you to the position. C takes d5, E takes d5. I wonder if you can spot what I found of great interest here, and why, if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, it looks as though there's some element of fragility with the queen supporting these two guys. Also, this bishop's out here, it's not protected either. And I thought, hold on. There's something about bishop takes d5 here. Doesn't that sort of mean that black's going to lose a piece back? So we have c takes d5, knight takes d5. And I thought in my mind's eye that anyway the queen moves, it's not that pleasant. Queen e6, not unpleasant because of knight c7. No, I found something in my mind's eye that actually after queen e6, I wonder if you can spot the other thing I noticed about queen e6. If I give you 10 seconds here. Okay, knight f4, forking these two guys. I know it seems to be a devious tactic, and I was very tempted by it. But the strategic backfire aspect of this combination. Remember, I've already weakened f3 a bit with my e3 move. These light squares are looking a bit vulnerable. Okay, and he plays on that now, actually. Unfortunately, I didn't factor this into my combination at all. I thought, okay, this is really nice for me. You know, I'll take on d7 or something if he plays queen h6, and my knight's actually protecting g2, so any bishop f3, I can worry about that later. You know, so say queen h6, knight takes d7, bishop f3. You know, there's no immediate threat of getting mated on the knight squares. And in fact, maybe you know here, wonder about h4 actually, g5, maybe knight g2. Maybe that's not so bad. This kind of position. I'll be getting maybe an attack on h7 later. So the queen's actually usefully pointing that knight for the moment as well in all this. So that doesn't seem positionally that bad. I mean, I thought. Even simpler though, I can just take on h5 here as well. Just get rid of this dangerous light square bishop. So there's all these attractive opportunities it seemed here. But he shocked me. I wonder if you can guess what he played here if I give you 10 seconds. Which causes a sort of strategic backfire on my light squares. So black to play. So R.McMichael ECF 208, quite high at the moment, higher than my rating. So what did he play if I give you 10 seconds, starting from now? Okay, he played a queen sack, he played knight takes e5. Let's add a kibitzer here, because this is going to get crazy. A little bit. Okay, so knight takes e6, I was worried by this. Actually, Rybka seems to like white by 0.47 now. It was 0.82. I think it's going to get less and less soon. Check. Takes. Black would have 3 pieces. And I really didn't like the look of this. It's only 0.49 to white. But look, you know, things like this look a bit unpleasant. Talk about weak light squares, you know, like from the recent live commentary game. This is like in reverse where I'm getting hacked up. I thought, anyway, it's gone to 0.31 now. Notice the evaluation shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. There's 3 pieces for the queen sack. We'd, I think, looked at right. Let's give white a null move. Let's say this. I think this would be a disaster because check. We were looking at checks. So say check. Alright, so here there would only be 1 move, not here because that would be mate. So imagine the king has to go to h3. Okay, Rybka doesn't care about the position, it's playing any move which is the best. So bishop g, this is actually okay, a draw. drawing line for black. Does black have any better here? Hold on a sec. Maybe not. Maybe this is sufficient if I wanted the draw. Rook c1, knight h4 check. This might be a draw with king h3. Okay. What is the best move here then for white? Say h4. Okay, knight d2. I'm coming into this f3 square maybe. Oh, not there. Let's just go there. Maybe this isn't as dangerous. I just thought black was having a lot of fun here, and so did he. So bishop e4. It just doesn't look too pleasant. But maybe, you know, the threat is not as the execution is not as scary as the potential threat here. Actually, king f1. White's advantage though is shriveling and shriveling. It's now 0.22. I just don't think this position is that pleasant to play as white. In fact, it's gone now to 0.02 at depth 12. I think what are the reasons for this? Knight h2 check, bishop c2. Now, say I play this, then black's actually getting the better of it now. So you can see it's easy to go wrong if I don't play super accurately. So that's a strategic backfire. I thought, okay, there's a lesser evil here. I don't have to go in for this queen sack. So let's turn the kibitzer off now. So he just sacked his queen with knight takes e5. So this has gone outside of my combinational calculation. So we have here a major strategic backfire, or do we? Well, as long as I don't play the queen sacrifice, it's not as major as maybe all that. I thought my ill-gotten gains, maybe if I just restrict it to one pawn, maybe I can get away with it. So I played actually d takes e5. So he played queen takes e5, which nicely centralizes the queen actually, hitting a1 as well. So I've got these dark square weaknesses, but I can take off his light square weaknesses, but I can take off his light square bishop. But now he plays a seemingly powerful centralizing move, and he plays it quickly and confidently, as if everything's under control. And indeed, it looked to me extremely scary actually initially, because here I was kind of negative about the position. You know, what's the queen doing on a3? What's the knight doing over here? But actually, there are certain tactical trump cards here. That the knight, okay, if we were negative about it, it's on the rim, it's dim. If we were negative about that, it's on the rim as well. It's takes 2 moves to get to the center via b4, for example, to d4, or maybe d6 if a rook was on d1. Okay, so here I experienced a strategic backfire shock, that my light squares are being lit up. You know, maybe with a move like knight g5 and queen e4 and knight f3, or knight h3 being threatened. I'm getting fried. I thought my king's getting fried. Let's give an example. If there's something concrete to that fear, then okay. If I'm getting fried in this position, so say rook c1. So knight g5. Right. Let's play a dumb move. Let's add a kibitzer and add a dumb move here. Potentially dumb move. So say queen c5, queen e4. You see, even in this position, there's saving resources. I don't have to be slaughtered, because there's always this check, which I don't even think I factored in, that the king was on g8. That's slightly weakening this diagonal, this f5. So there's these saving checks just in time to avoid getting slaughtered on my own light squares. So that's why I think I was totally overly negative here in this position, when in fact white even can use this tactical trump card of the knight in g7 to play the move rook d1. There's even time for rook ad1, which Rivka gives. Well, it's not a major advantage for white, but it's above 0, which is a good sign. But it's dangerous to play. I mean, it's not a positionally comfortable game at the moment, it seems. But rook ad1 is probably a very strong move. Say knight g5, rook d7, hitting that g7. Okay, now say black did go in for knight f3 here. and Queen E4. Okay, it looks a bit scary, doesn't it? Because you know maybe there's knight E1 next and Queen G2 mate. Now this is something I didn't even see last night when I did a quick post-mortem. There's something about this position which, okay, you know, if you're forced to play like a computer, you know, you got to play like a computer. Now, and so yeah, maybe all your lovely strategic trump cards have been blown away, and you're left with tactical ones. But here, there's a beautiful tactical one, a tactical trump card. Rook takes G7. Okay, the king can't go to F8, right? Obviously, it goes to H8. I wonder if you can spot something here. This is quite neat. So white's on the verge of getting slaughtered. If I give you 10 seconds here, I'm checking with the Kibitzer, yeah. So can you spot a move for white here, which doesn't involve King H3, which is not a move you'd normally think of, King H3, just to escape the check like that. But apart from King H3, is there another move which is really, really good here, if I give you 10 seconds? Okay, Rook takes H7 check. And no, I hadn't seen any of this during the game. This Rook D1 to D7 to G7. I think I just ruled it out because I didn't like the look. So there's a knight fork here, and that's the end of the story. But I just didn't like the look of this knight in this position. The reason I was shocked and scared is because of knight G5 and Queen E4. I didn't realise the strength of Rook D1. Whoops, I've just unveiled something there, which so instead of Rook AD1, I end up, believe it or not, trying to cover the E4 square. So I did play this poxy move F3. Yeah, I was in strategic shock, basically, the light squares, but without seeing this continuation of Rook D1 takes G7 takes H7, I think objectively it's damn scary for white here because of knight G5 and Queen E4. There has been a major strategic backfire. The combination hasn't worked out as expected at all because of that queen sack offering, which I didn't factor in. Before going on any further now, let's just go back to the start of the combination. I had a pleasant looking position. Was there any need for bishop d5? I mean, bishop d5 is a top ribcon move, but as I say, the positions are not easy to play then if there is this queen sack available to black in this position. Knight f4 for black playing knight takes e5 as the strongest move is not an easy to play position if you have to factor in all this stuff after taking the bishop. D1 takes g7 takes h7. It's not the sort of thing you'd think of to make use of that knight on h5. So here, I mean, a more human continuation, easy to play. Maybe just f4, just supporting the knight on e5. Okay, it creates that more gaping hole on e4, but this knight's now on the dark square. This looks as though it might be easy to play. This kind of position, maybe even use c5. If we have this position, white has a 0.18 advantage technically. That's easy to play. There's no combinational risk of plunging into a position with massively weakened light squares, which are about to be exploited by queen and knight. So okay, we get into this with this counter queen sack. So I played this dreadful knight f3, which should have really lost the game because black has a really strong and obvious move here. I wonder if you can spot it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, he just plays knight d2. So if the rook moves, say, to e1 or d1 or anywhere, just knight takes f3. So I can't protect e3 either because e3 is also attacked. So this is a bit dire. I end up playing what I think is the best move in the position. I just play rook a1, giving up the exchange. But I'm thinking, oh my god, I think I'm going to have to resign here. This is really embarrassing. So a bit of darkness crept in. Should I resign? Should I play on? I've just lost the exchange for nothing. So much for the brilliant combination. Knight takes f1, king takes f1, and he plays actually what I think technically one of the strongest moves in the position. Looks pretty logical to me. Queen c3, and I was really thinking, do I resign? Do I resign? But then, okay, there was this glimmer of hope which lit up with this g7 square and this knight actually. Believe it or not, that actually, you know, maybe if I play here queen c1, okay, I can offer e3. You know, for example, takes rook c7, and that's unpleasant to defend g7. You know, if g6, then knight f6. You know, if king h8, rook h8, h7 mate. If otherwise, maybe, you know, some chances. So, but actually, in this position, he's got a clinical move which he didn't play. He started actually letting me off the hook. The clinical move is just here. Just keep possession of the c file. Doesn't matter about the queens coming off. It doesn't matter about attempts to get to g7. For example, here you can just take with this rook, and now to defend g7, forget taking there, forget that, because that will still leave that issue. You can just retreat here, winning. Now, for some reason, he let me off the hook. I think he wanted to mate me with his queen and rooks instead. So he actually, in this position, he played queen e5. I was a little bit more optimistic immediately, actually, after queen e5, as though, okay, it's only a pawn for being exchanged down. Maybe this knight could be useful, and also I posed this question: well, if my great combination can backfire, maybe I can cause some of his combinations to backfire. I had that on my mind now. This idea of strategic backfire, it was on the mind. So check, queen f4. Okay, queen e6, and he was being a bit cagey with the queen, you know, just playing as though toying with me to keep the queens on. So queen d7, as if, yeah, is the queen going to infiltrate somewhere serious? Okay, I think, okay, how do I get my position, king position, a bit safer? Maybe rook e2 and king f2 came to mind. So I play rook e2, the rook goes to c8 as if it's going to come down, and the queen's going to come down to d1. So here I play king f2 though, and he plays rook c6, as though maybe even rook g6. So I play knight f4 now, and the knight is actually rerouting kind of usefully towards the centre here. Rook c3, as if maybe, you know, rook c3 and queen d2 are on the cards. But I was optimistic here because there's always a knight g6 tactic to defend e3. So I didn't mind that threat. I just carried on trying to weaken now his position as though I'm playing positionally. Forget being exchanged down. What would I want to do if I'm playing positionally here? Well, if I'm playing positionally, I want to sort of emphasize this knight on the dark squares and maybe weaken this diagonal. Maybe get a fawn pawn here, thorn. So h4. Now rook c1, as if, yeah, queen d1 is a major threat. Also rook h1 is a major threat, and I think he missed his chance here. There's another clinical kill involving rook h1 here, according to Rebecca, but he missed that chance. He actually just played queen d1, allowing me knight e1, which does the job of protecting my first rank. So I'm holding on here for dear life in the position. So queen d7, and I carry on with my positional plan h5, just try and weaken this diagonal. Positional tactical plan. So h6, now that's useful because f5 is going to be more difficult to protect later if I ever exert more pressure on it. So queen f4, and I'm starting to feel I'm getting back in the game. Especially now that I noticed quite a cute knight manoeuvre, which reminds me of this Howell Carlson game from the London Classic last year, where Howell managed to draw with Magnus Carlsen the exchange down, getting his knight to a very nice, I think it was the d4 square, like this game. So knight c2, and I was excited, you know, knight d4. Actually, it could be here there's also rook h1, which is really good, which might be really good for some reason. But anyway, he played rook d2, and I'm really getting back in the game now, knight d4 or so4. Well, I was right, I am getting back in the game. So rook takes e2, and then he plays queen d5, which, okay, gives some possibilities for maybe queen a5, but I feel he's starting to blow the position. Okay, I can't take with the queen takes f5 because the queen takes d4, but I can actually win that pawn, which seemingly exposes my king. You know, is there anything which can infiltrate here, like queen b5s and stuff? But I take the risk. I go 2 pawns for the exchange down. I play knight takes f5. He plays his check. He comes to d3. He doesn't. I thought this other thing. I was optimistic. He might even be greedy here and maybe not queen a5 here. That doesn't. Or is that right? Queen a5. Oh yeah, queen a5. I was looking at this g4. Just give up these two pawns. Or is it another move here? No, actually, I think this was a slightly different position I was looking at. So queen d5. Let's go back to the game continuation. Knight takes f5. Check. Okay. Well, I'd looked at giving up these two pawns to have the king here and the queen here attacking g7 because I thought rook g8 there will be knight h6. So that was the essence of what I'd been optimistic about. But the queen goes in for the kill with queen d3 instead. Forget about these two pawns. So g4 anyway. Okay. Check. And now he can take perpetual if he wants. And I think I offered a draw at some point here, which was not taken. Okay. So he played on rook c8. It is a bit worrying, you know, this stuff of the queen and rook. Okay, but I'm getting in my queen d4 now. I'm creating an escape hole for my king. So check, and in this position, it's starting to be dangerous for him because, you know, rook g8 or rook c7. There's queen d8 check, picking up the rook. Rook g8. There's knight takes h6, and if rook f8, then again knight f5. There's no g6s or anything. So I thought this is looking okay, and I expected this next move, queen c3, to defend that g7. So I play e4, and I'm quite optimistic because I'm two pawns in exchange, and this pawn might be a runner, but he safeguards against it. He plays king g8 and offers a draw. Now we've both got 15 minutes left on the clock, and I check 2 or 3 team boards, well, 2 in particular next to each other, but this third one I thought, okay, other people were saying we've got good chances on that. So the captain kind of sort of didn't give the impression he'll be too upset if I drew. So I was this pending draw off. I was looking around at 3 of our current games left in the match. I thought we were doing okay in them. So I returned back and just humbly agreed to draw. But actually, I mean, technically, forgetting the history of the game, if I was a computer and I could forget the history of the game and what happened, I think the advantage for it is absolutely minimal here, actually, according to Rivka, 0.15 with e5. Let's look at an engine line here. So say a3 or a4, does it matter? I don't know which. Knight d4, say king f7. This is going to be difficult to be making progress, I think, because black can always do this at minimum, because these pawns are far away from being connected at the moment. Maybe though f4 is starting to look a bit scary for black. There was potential to play on, and I'm a bit worried. The more I look at this, the more that potential is looking hot. But I'm not going to be playing all these Rivka moves. I'm going to be playing sort of less accurately all the time. But if we have this position where I'm prepared to split up the pawns, which is not something I would have considered anyway. So apparently white's doing okay, maybe more than okay. The knight's doing okay. If it starts to munch, this would be a decisive advantage. Yeah, but that's Rivka playing white. I mean, I think I was carrying the baggage now of the history of the game, and I don't know. The pawns didn't seem that. Obviously, they don't look that promising now. But given time, their inertia will increase. If it is true that I can crack this position. So the key point, if I was trying to crack this position, we're trying to get these knight and king away so the f pawn can start moving. If the f pawn can start moving, then that also supports g5. So that's something to bear in mind for this kind of endgame, that to get this inertia going. But endgames are always played when both players are really short of time in these league matches. They're really kind of the most disrespected aspect of the game. Probably why Fischer was thinking Fischer clocks are a good idea. because end games are just really, they become like a major weakness of any player, because we're rushing through them all. We've got no time to really think about them properly. But here, okay, I've got some chances, and if I'd known that, maybe if I'd known more clearly that we were in grave danger on this third board, this other board, maybe I should have played on here. But but the main point of this, I think, this game is to show something that a combination. Okay, if you miscalculate a combination, you end up with this kind of strategic backfire where the opponent's got positional trump cards and the easier to play position. Maybe simply you've got to hold on to your tactical trump cards. I think that's my theory here, my idea. So the knight on h5 could be justified tactically, even though this combination has just gone splat because of his counter queen sack. So the combination's gone splat with bishop takes d5. It looked good at the time. I don't know how many of you guys would have played bishop takes d5 and then be horrified later about your knight squares. Would you have considered bishop d5? Would it have come into consciousness? Some people say I play better at, on the blitz, maybe because I don't think about these things. Maybe thinking is bad, because then you end up thinking about all sorts of things like bishop d5. But if you don't think, then you're treating all your long games like 5-minute games, and surely that's not too good either. The finesses of the positions, maybe they're interesting sometimes. But I thought this was going to be positioning okay actually at this stage, in the worst case scenario, because of this knight to f4 idea, winning this bishop. So I thought my light squares were not going to be that much of an issue here in a worst case scenario. But unfortunately, this started to spell some issues. This move, this queen sack, this knight takes e5. Okay, so strategic backfire. So now we must enter computer mode now. Basically, computer mode. Forget. Okay, it's really unpleasant to play this position. In principle, weaken light squares. Why have I done this to myself? What are the tactical trump cards? The queen only takes 2 moves to get back into the centre. There's a check available on this diagonal. The knight's hitting g7. There's tactical trump cards here. There's the potential. The rooks are connected. The rook can either come to c1 or d1 to hit the d file to get onto the 7th rank quite quickly. There's no rook challenging on d8 at the moment. There's tactical trump cards. There's no need for a proxy reaction to knight e4, just based on knight g5 and queen e4. But also, what would help is being able to use a computer here to see rook d1. With this rook g7 and rook h7 idea, if the knight is there and the queen is there, just to make sure you can munch up the queen on e4, that's handy to know, that kind of stuff, that there's a rook sack on h7 potentially. Okay, not knowing that adds more fear to the position, to playing the position. And it was a panic reaction, so I just go the exchange down. He doesn't play the most accurately, thankfully. And somehow, because of this factor anyway, this g7, that did give me hope here, but just a slightly later point now, to play on the game anyway, not to resign. So I had some hope for the position, that g7 and maybe the knight's going to get good. So, and I was proven right, but maybe some inaccurate play helped from him. So I'm just trying to generate more compensation, and the knight, is rerouting, lovely rerouting from h5 to d4, I thought, actually, in this game. So this rerouted knight to d4, securing me, a very nice position here. I thought I was comfortable now playing this position again. I thought, maybe this has strategically backfired on him, winning the exchange like that. Like my combination backfired. His has kind of backfired here. That maybe I'm starting to have the easier to play position, but he gives up this other pawn. So forcing, a position where he can just draw by perpetual check. But he goes in for the kill, it seems, with rook c8, giving me this powerful looking queen d4, powerful centralizing queen d4. So lots of tactics now emerge. So again, I think my position is now easier to play. Now, if I was being brutal here after e4 king g8, well, here the advantage can statistically, if I play the cards right here, the pawn inertia is going to increase, but I had in mind the e-pawn, which is the wrong plan anyway, not this kind of engine variation plan which we've just seen. Of playing eventually for F4 and G5. That wasn't really what I was considering, and I only had 15 minutes anyway. So to be honest, I didn't really want to blow another ending with lots of other sleepless nights, and I thought, given the history of the game, a good draw. But anyway, I hope there was something instructive in that about how things can backfire, and maybe you just have to cling on to the tactical elements after. If you're forced to play like a computer, you've got to start, just look at the tactical elements in the worst case scenarios. So handling that worst case scenario, your combination's messed up, what do you do? Just don't panic. Don't panic. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.